Join us where pumpkin guts meet passion, an exploration of all things scary and scary making. It's messy, magical, and made with madness. This is Working the Fright Shift.
Clock into Working the Fright Shift, the gateway between imagination and fear, with your host, Ted Doherty.
Hey everybody, Ted Doherty here. Welcome to Working the Fright Shift. I am beyond excited to introduce you to this week's fear architect, Anthony Dalbis. But first, step into the funhouse of fear as we twist through this week's Horror Blueprint.
The Horror Blueprint, the art behind the fear.
Today, we are stalking down shadowy neighborhood streets to talk about one of the most game-changing horror films of all time, John Carpenter's Halloween. I held off on this one because this is my favorite slasher. I'm a Michael guy, but this movie didn't just give us Michael Myers. It rewired how we experience fear. It helped shape Halloween as a holiday and quite literally changed indie filmmaking forever. So keep your doors locked and let's step inside the sinister quiet of Haddonfield, Illinois. Before Halloween opened in 1978, horror was kind of different. You had your gothic monsters from Universal, Hitchcock gave us psychological thrills with Psycho, and movies like The Exorcist dove into the supernatural and religious horror space. Then came a few early slashers, Texas Chainsaw Massacre in 1974, Black Christmas that same year. Both gnarly, very raw, and I'm a huge fan of both. But what Carpenter did with Halloween was streamline the whole concept. He stripped away the noise. No blood splatter, no big exposition. He gave us pure, quiet dread. They shot it in 20 days in spring in Pasadena. I grew up right next to Pasadena. I visited several of the filming locations, and they still made it feel like late October in the Midwest. It was pure filmmaking magic. Carpenter's use of the Steadicam was revolutionary. It created that creeping sense that someone is watching. And that score, those notes on a synthesizer basically became fear itself. When Halloween was released, audiences weren't quite sure what they were walking into. And that uncertainty became part of its power. The film's slow burn tension, the score, the suburban setting were a stark contrast to the gothic castles and supernatural horrors that had dominated earlier decades. Critics initially gave mixed reviews, but word of mouth and visceral audience reactions turned it into a sleeper hit. Viewers were stunned by the faceless killer and the creeping dread that built without relying on any kind of gore. Carpenter's decision to set the horror in a quiet neighborhood where evil could lurk behind any hedge, that shattered the illusion of suburban safety and tapped into a growing cultural anxiety. It wasn't just a scary movie, it was a mirror held up to the American psyche, and it hit way harder than anybody expected. And despite those innovations, Carpenter made Halloween on a shoestring budget, just only $300,000. But it made nearly $50 million. That is a huge deal. Then we have lots of sequels, tons of them. Some we love, some we kind of tolerate. But here's the basic rundown, but we have to start with the original, Halloween. On Halloween night, a masked killer named Michael Myers escapes a sanitarium and returns to his hometown of Haddonfield, Illinois, to stalk babysitter Laurie Strode. Then there was Halloween 2, 1981. Picking up moments after the original, Laurie is rushed to the hospital, but Michael isn't quite finished. And the sequel deepens the mythology, revealing a bloodline connection and turning the hospital into a slaughterhouse. Then there was Halloween 3, Season of the Witch in 1982. There's no Michael Myers, but it's a standalone tale of corporate witchcraft, killer Halloween masks, and Stonehenge-powered tech. I love it as a separate film, and it's basically a sci-fi horror detour that trades slashing for sacrificial ritual. Then we return to Michael with Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, 1988. 10 years later, Michael awakens from a coma and targets his young niece, Jamie. Then there was Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers, 1989. Jamie is now mute, traumatized, and psychically linked to her uncle. Then there is Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers, 1995. 6 years later, Jamie gives birth to a child that a cult wants. Michael is terrorizing everybody, but Paul Rudd and Donald Pleasance are in it. Then there is Halloween H2O, 20 years later, 1998. Ignoring parts 4 through 6, this sequel finds Laurie living under a new identity, haunted by trauma. Then 2002, Halloween Resurrection, a group of college kids live stream from the Myers house. Then Halloween in 2007, Rob Zombie's version. This reimagining explores Michael's childhood, his descent into violence, and a much more brutal take on the original story. Then Halloween 2, 2009, Rob Zombie's sequel dives deeper into Laurie's unraveling psyche. Then there was Halloween 2018, a direct sequel to the 1978 original. Laurie is a survivalist waiting for Michael's return. Then Halloween Kills 2021, Mob Justice, the town rises up against Michael. Then Halloween Ends 2022, 4 years later, Laurie tries to move on, but Michael returns for one last confrontation. There's something about Michael Myers that just works. He doesn't talk. He doesn't run. That mask, blank, emotionless. It forces you to project your own fears onto him. He's less person and more presence. Michael didn't just stay in the movies, he straight up invaded pop culture. That mask, you can find it at every Spirit Halloween from coast to coast. Trick or Treat Studios, the awesome company, dropped some killer merchandise, collectibles, even board games. Rob Zombie's remakes, yes, they were divisive, but they led to way more collectibles, figures, and more merchandise. And let's talk Universal's Halloween Horror Nights. The Boogeyman has showed up there tons back in 2014, then 2016, both in Orlando and Hollywood. Halloween Hell Comes to Haddonfield. That version was a sequel maze and plunged guests into the chaos of Halloween 2 with all the hospital corridors and Michael Myers popping out from everywhere. In Hollywood, though, you went through a jack-o'-lantern and it smelled like pumpkin spice. It was abstract, super fun. Then it came back in 2018, 2022, 2015, 2016, probably a bunch more times than that. There's a lot of mazes and tons of Michael Myers popping out of nowhere over and over and over again. Let's talk about its impact, though. This movie, you know how October 31st now feels like it's a season, not just a day? Well, we can partially thank John Carpenter. After Halloween, the holiday evolved. More haunted houses, more horror marathons, more elaborate costumes. Michael kind of became a scary mascot. The movie's whole vibe, the shadows, quiet suburban streets, tension over gore. It mirrors what Halloween is really about, leaning into what's mysterious and strange. Halloween isn't just a film, it's a cultural reset. It taught filmmakers to focus on atmosphere and made indie horror viable. And it shaped how we think about fear, not just in media, but in our own minds. So whether you're screaming inside a haunted attraction, walking through a dark, quiet neighborhood at nighttime, or just watching through the blinds on a windy October night, Michael Myers is there. And maybe that's the point. Stay scared, stay curious, stay aware. And remember, evil doesn't die. It just hides in the shadows of the horror blueprint. We burned through the horror blueprint. Now let's talk to someone who builds dread from the ashes. Tonight, we are joined by a true legend in the Halloween theme park world. With over 3 decades of professional screams under his belt at Knott's Scary Farm, Anthony Dalbis is more than just a monster. He's a Halloween powerhouse. From his fan favorite Ghost Town Scare Zone character Otis, immortalized on t-shirts, pins, and water bottles, to his behind-the-scenes work as a makeup artist for film and television, Anthony has helped shape the face of horror entertainment. He's also the mastermind behind the SoCal Zombie Walk, bringing undead flash mobs to life across Southern California. Whether he is in the fog or under the lights, Anthony lives and breathes Halloween. And tonight, we dig into the mind behind the monster with this week's Fear Architect, Anthony Dalbis.
Fear Architects, crafting worlds of terror.
Welcome to Working the Fright Shift, Anthony. Antho. Your friends call you Antho. I'm calling you Antho. Antho, thank you so much for being here with me. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Gearing up for the season.
Absolutely. And where are you calling us from today?
My living room in sunny SoCal.
And well, I appreciate you beating the heat and hanging out with us for a little bit. Antho, I have questions for you. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, we're going to start from the beginning. Rewind way back. What first inspired your love for Halloween and horror? Was there a moment or influence from your childhood that lit the spark?
Yeah. My mom was a huge horror Halloween lover. So that was probably my initial spark, watching her make our costumes back in the 70s and the early 80s. And then I ventured into the Ben Cooper masks after that. But movies, TV shows from the 70s and 80s, there was nothing like them. Creature Feature, Schlock Theater Saturday night. Mom would put us to bed and then she'd get me back up to join her to watch a spooky movie while my sisters were sleeping. I vividly remember the first time watching Jaws and Halloween with my older sister, sitting on the living room floor in front of the TV, terrified. And I couldn't get that shark out of my head or that white mask. And all these years later, I still can't. It's my Halloween horror obsession. Those two movies are just connected. I imprinted on them, I think.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Now, fast forwarding a little bit, What was your first time at Knott's Scary Farm like?
Oh, man, it was 1988, and it was basically walking into a nightmare horror movie where the monsters chased you. The element of fog and theatrical lighting and sound. I had never experienced anything like it. I've heard my sisters tell stories of the JC's haunts that they used to attend in the 80s where people would eat their own guts and attack and scare you. And just hearing those stories, my mind just went to another realm of, I want to experience this. And in 1988, I got to, and I was terrified, but instantly hooked.
Only a few years later, you transitioned from fan to Scary Farm monster. How did you make that happen?
Well, my very first year I attended, I asked a monster, how do I get to do this? And he was nice enough to break character quickly and give me the lowdown. When I was 18, I was able to work it, and I auditioned. I called that summer and said, when can I apply? They told me. I applied. I went through the whole process. It was magic to go behind the curtain. It was like the Wizard of Oz. You got to peek behind the curtain of something that had really affected me. Being that horror-loving teenager, I got to step back and create those nightmares with a bunch of other goofballs.
Thank goodness you did. And well, throughout the years at Knott's Scary Farm, you have portrayed many characters, but Otis has become, I can say it, an icon. Can you share how the character of Otis came to life?
The seed for Otis was planted in the swamp. You were there.
I was.
I auditioned. Well, actually, I didn't audition. I asked for a street position, and there were no ghost town, but the swamp was new, and I took it as my foot in the door. And I was, what was I called? Ma Pa, and I was Bubba, basically. He was this big hillbilly from the swamp with overalls, and I guess he lived there with his parents in the swamps. And I did that for 2 years, and then I got a chance to go to Ghost Town, and I basically just took the costume and the character over, changed the mask each year. He was human, and then the following year, a position opened up to be the Ape Man of Ghost Town, which was a thrill because always loved Planet of the Apes, and being that that is one of the original Ghost Town monsters, the apes, the chimps and the gorillas. So I got to step into that legacy for a handful of years, and I designed the look of the costume. I wore hockey gear under my overalls, and I wore a big gnarly wig, and changed the way I walked, took on some ape-like demeanor. And, I used to swing a severed arm around. Yeah, I did that. And then he just evolved into this big gnarly beast that he is now. Fangs, claws, hair, wisecracks. Oh, basically a terrifying wall coming at you because I'm huge. Gecko's this little green thing next to me, next to Otis, and we don't look anything alike. We're like, complete opposites, but for some reason it works.
I know it does. And just for folks who may not be familiar, we are referring to the swamp, which is a now defunct scare zone that was at Not Scary Farm for a handful of years in the early 2000s. And then Antho transferred over to Ghost Town. He joined me. I spent some time in the swamp and then went to Ghost Town as well. But once you got to Ghost Town, once you developed and defined Otis as a character, he did become iconic. And so how did it feel the first time you saw Otis featured on official Not Scary Farm merchandise? T-shirts, coffee mugs. Was that a surreal moment if you think back to 1988 and the kid that was discovering this event for the first time and now you're on T-shirts?
Yeah, it was a overwhelming thrill to be honored that way, to be put on merch for an event that has meant so much to my life. Most of my friends, if not all of my adulthood friends, are linked to being part of Not Scary Farm, being that I'm one of the last few of the old there, but that doesn't stop us from still getting together for gatherings and whatnot. But seeing him on the shirt, buttons, fan art, oil paintings, I mean, he's been on a lot, and it's crazy and such a thrill. I'm still hoping for an action figure maybe, or a stuffed animal version, because he looks like a huge furry stuffed animal. That'd be pretty rad.
I agree. I want an Otis plush for sure. Now, you've been involved with this event for decades. How have you seen it evolved over the years?
Well, the production value is just shot through the roof. With any attraction you go to, you look at old archival footage from the 80s or 90s, and it's like night and day. There's so much more. It's almost three-dimensional now with the props and the textures and the walls and going through caves and all that. It's right up there. And that's been really exciting each year to see what boundaries are they pushing, what new elements are they bringing. It's not just, back in the day, it was polka dot walls, which was groundbreaking at the time with the black lights. And now it's amazing and such a thrill each year to watch the next step. What boundaries are you going to knock through this year? And talent has totally changed. I think social media has a lot to do with it too, because everybody, whatever you want is like at arm's length. You can just reach out and grab it. You can find it within seconds to do your research for costuming. Like the technique for costuming with aging and all that has really gone through the roof. Character development is a lot more in your face now, which I love. People wearing contacts and fangs. That was not heard of back when I started. It was a movie thing. And I remember 1995, a guy came through an attraction wearing white lenses, and it blew my mind. And the following year, I had white, spooky, cheap. Now they're $25. Back then, they cost me over $200 for whiteouts.
Wow.
Yeah, there was a process. I had to get a prescription and order them from a company in New York because they were hand painted back then.
Wow.
They faded. So then I had to get them repainted. But, just like, now you can get them for a while. You can get them at any swap meet.
Speaking of the contact lenses and wardrobe, as a makeup artist in film and TV, you have experience in both those realms. How does that work influence or enhance your approach to haunt characters?
I like to soak up as much knowledge as I can. Everybody borrows from everybody in one aspect or another. So I'm inspired all the time by new people and film, music videos, social media, anything that is the next great thing. Look at special effects, how they've changed. It used to be just glued on. It started with 2D paint, then it was prosthetic. Now it's silicone masks, silicone adhesion, dentures, you name it. You can completely create something at home that you used to just see on TV. So I'm always watching and reading articles, watching documentaries in regards to what's the new next thing in special effects, makeup, the genre, Halloween included, because they're so close together. They go hand in hand. It shocks me when people love Halloween but can't stand horror. What? To me, that's just like peanut butter and jelly,
I agree with you. Now, what's your process like when you are creating a new Halloween character? I've seen you do it a bunch, and you helped me throughout the years, and I've seen you help other actors for Haunt throughout the years on their looks, on their character. What's your process, and do you start maybe with the backstory, or do you start maybe more visually with like a cool look, or is it something else?
Well, I want to know if it's myself or I'm working with somebody else. I want to know what their vision is. Are you making this a human? Or is this a creature? Are they dead? Supernatural? You have to have a little something right there to grow, like that little seed. And then you take it to the next level. How do you want to portray yourself? Are you going to be slow? Are you going to be fast? Are you a stalker? What kind of clothing will you be wearing? And then we go from there. What period is this set in? I like coverage, head to toe. I don't want to see any part of the human. I want that illusion created. Teeth, eyes, stain your mouth, whatever it takes to lose the human being and create a full packaged monster. We grew up with the best times in the 80s when special effects was knocked through the wall. Freddy Krueger, Jason, Michael Myers, Pinhead. These are the icons of our generation. They set the mark, and you try to achieve that. I always do. So I always share my history, and let me, if you have any questions, reach out to me. Can I give you my tips on how to carry yourself? So you don't you don't look like a dude in a rubber mask walking around. You want to step it up. I think the general public expects it now, and they aren't shy to tell you online if something is not 100%. They'll read you from here to tomorrow. And I appreciate that. If someone has it in their DNA, Halloween or horror, that's my kind of people. You could become a fan later in life and whatnot, and that's great. There's lots of empty seats at the table to join us. But you like me, it's part of it's our life. Is there a day that goes by that you don't think about Halloween or horror? No, because you look around. My living room, your living room has Halloween up year round, or horror, Not so much Halloween. I do put most of that away because I need the separation throughout the year, but I do have a lot. There are some pieces that don't go into the box.
Amen to all of it. I love all of it so much. And when we think about our looks complete looks.
Mhm.
You have created some amazing zombie looks. So let's talk about zombies. How did the idea for the SoCal Zombie Walk come about? What was it like organizing that early form of flash mob? Because that's really what it is. But we have over the years gone to a lot of different locations with the SoCal Zombie Walk. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I was offered to be an extra on CSI New York for their Halloween episode, and it was going to be a flash mob zombie walk, going to a theater to see a spooky movie. And once we all got in the theater, there was a dead guy on the street, and they needed to figure out who this was. So we filmed on Broadway, downtown Los Angeles, all night, and it was magical. Joe Dante, the famous director of Gremlins and whatnot, was the director, so that was a thrill. Jump ahead a few months, I did a zombie walk in LA, and we had a blast. But I thought I could do this, but let's do it for charity. Let's do something good. So each one that I host has a different charity, be it Spark of Love at Christmas time. We collect toys for kids, food drives for the LA Food Bank. We collected donations for Linda Blair's World Heart, which is an animal rescue, school supplies for needy school districts. Each one has been different. The F Cancer, fill in the blank, for cancer research. We just did one in springtime. We brought it back after 11 years, and that was for the Trevor Project. I mean, it doesn't take much to share and help others, and to get together with a bunch of Halloween horror loving fans and take over a boulevard looking like a pack of George Romero zombies is pretty freaking magical. The reactions from the general public are what blow us away. And being that we were gone for 11 years, it's changed now because everybody has their cell phones out instantly. It's like, cameras up, everybody, you're being filmed and photographed.
I love the fact that that is one of the big changes. Now, just a couple quick last questions, Antho, and then we can wrap things up. We know that you, a lot of us, we are fully immersed in horror all year round, Halloween. Are there any more recent horror films or artists that you keep returning to for inspiration, or they have been recently inspirational to you?
Inspirational. I follow the legend, Rick Baker. Retired from doing film work, but he still is creating. And I recently went to his art show, his first art show, and he had original oil paintings as well as props on display. He's in his 70s and he's still doing it, and it's amazing. There's an artist that I follow from Canada, Jason Edmiston. His artwork is on so many posters, action figure packages, T-shirts. Phenomenal work. And those are two that are always there. My old buddy Wayne Toth. I love seeing what he does for film. Just magic in their hands. These sculptors blow my mind.
Absolutely. Now, looking into the future, where do you see Halloween themed entertainment heading? Are there any trends or ideas that you're excited about and you're seeing them develop and they're heading for a positive future?
Mask making has changed so much with silicone. Back in the day, we always had to wear these big bulbous over the head masks, and now they're creating these half masks that fit like a glove. They're seamless, some of these, and that helps with the actor. You're not sweating so much. It's much more comfortable, much more movement. The fact that people are just stepping up their game with their looks. Look at all these pop-up horror events that happen in parking lots and at these parks. Spooky Swap Meet, Creep IE, all these different ones. You can just go there just to watch the cosplayers, and they're just knocking it through the wall. I love it. Movies, I just saw Weapons the other night, and that was bonkers. Can't wait for the upcoming Conjuring Last Rite, the final. Those are some good ones. TV shows, we have Crystal Lake coming. That's the backstory on Friday the 13th. Can't wait. Wednesday just dropped. I mean, there's a lot. The horror genre is in full force. Back in the day, we'd get like one movie every few months or maybe every year. Horror. Now it's look at the box office. There's 2 in the top 10 right now, and that's great. Horror is good, and it's not going anywhere, and I'm here for it.
Me too. Thank goodness. Now, one final fun question. What is your ultimate scary season starter pack? You have 3 essential items in your starter pack. What would they be?
Just in general, over food, collectibles, and whatnot.
Yeah, so for example, you could have like pumpkin spice, a fog machine, and an old copy of John Carpenter's Halloween. But what would you choose?
I'm a sucker for that PSL. Anything pumpkiny. I love festive fall candles. Pull out my tubs of all my Halloween and fall horror shirts. So many, I have to roll them like burritos in these tubs. That's always a trip, to get the season going. And then decorating. I start decorating the 1st of September because once the season starts, you don't have time. And I'm extra. So and I'm that house up at the end of the block that's all decked out all month. I love driving home after a night at Haunt and seeing my house coming, and I see the orange and purple lights. It gives me life. How's that?
For anybody who wants to learn about the SoCal Zombie Walk, because it has come back, you just announced recently that there's going to be one in, I believe, December of 2025. How could people learn about the SoCal Zombie Walk so that way if they want to join, they can?
Yeah. I have an Instagram page and a Facebook page. All the information is posted there. It's a place to meet others that share in the love. And, after the walks, everybody shares their photos and video montages. It's a fun little community. I'm glad it came back. I'm glad it was successful and that people are still asking about it. The Christmas one is a total trip because we twist typical zombies and make them merry and festive or scary and festive. And it's fun because we take all the toys right to the fire department and drop them off, and the fire department looks at us like, "What the hell? This is nuts, but amazing." And that'll be in Orange on December 6th, and all the information will be posted. So yeah, save the date. Come walk with us. Even if you don't want to be a zombie, you can come out and experience a good time. And
Well, and if you are listening to this episode after December of 2025, make sure you follow SoCal Zombie Walk for any future walks. So that way, if you're available and in the area to join us for future walks, you can join us. Antho, thank you for working the Fright Shift. We have stepped through the velvet curtains of fear with the brilliant Anthony Dalbis. Now the spotlight shifts from center stage to the shadowed wings, where I reveal the haunted lessons that have shaped the way I create in Echoes of the Past.
Echoes of the past. The origins of scare experiences.
We're sifting through the sands of time where they stirred up stories that never quite settled. We're peeling back the burlap curtain on Old West horror legends, tales of haunted outposts, desert apparitions, and the cowboy spirits that ride where the living dare not go. The American frontier was rich soil for folklore, a place where isolation bred imagination and where every creaking floorboard or distant howl might carry deeper meaning. One of the most chilling is the tale of El Muerto, the headless horseman of South Texas, an outlaw whose decapitated body was strapped to a wild Mustang and sent galloping through the desert as a warning, only to become a ghostly rider seen for generations. Then there's Silverheels, a beloved dance hall girl in Colorado who vanished after caring for minors during a smallpox outbreak. Her veiled spirit is said to wander cemeteries, leaving flowers on graves. And of course, Jesse James, the infamous outlaw, is rumored to haunt his family farm in Missouri, with lights flickering and voices echoing through empty rooms. These stories blend tragedy, folklore, and frontier justice, reminders that in the Wild West, not all spirits found peace. Literature lit a bigger fuse. There was Ambrose Bierce's The Death of Halpin Fraser, a surreal, dreamlike ghost story set in a foggy Californian forest. Or Bret Hart's The Outcasts of Poker Flat, which isn't supernatural, but it set the tone for morally complex, fate-driven frontier narratives. These weren't polished parlor tales. They were gritty, grim, and full of remorse. And then came Hollywood. Scary westerns, they've haunted screens for decades. We saw the genre evolve from campy ghost town spectacles to psychological horror and dusty boots. There was Curse of the Undead from 1959. A vampire gunslinger stalks the Southwest, blending gothic horror with westerns. Then one of my favorites, High Plains Drifter from 1973. Clint Eastwood's enigmatic stranger may just be the ghost of a lynched marshal, exacting revenge on the corrupt town that let him die. Or how about a different take? House 2, the second story from 1987. It's about an undead gunslinger named Slim Razor who rides in from a supernatural Old West, seeking revenge and the powerful Crystal Skull. He's opposed by Gramps, a quirky Old West zombie who teams up with his descendant Jesse to protect their legacy and the mansion they live in from Slim's wrath. The makeup effects for these characters were killer. Then, on the more serious side, Bone Tomahawk from 2015, a brutal journey into cannibalistic horror set in the plains. Less ghost, but more terror. The Haunted West has long been a playground for storytellers, and few did it better than The Twilight Zone. Take The Grave, Season 3, Episode 7. A gunslinger visits the grave of a man he refused to confront in life, only to be dragged to his death by the vengeful corpse. Or The Hunt, Season 3, Episode 19, where a backwoods hunter dies and unknowingly walks through the afterlife with his loyal dog, dodging false gates to hell. These episodes didn't rely on any kind of jump scares or anything like that. They used atmosphere, morality, and regret to haunt the viewer. These are just a few examples. There's tons more. But some ghost towns were not just filmed. They were forged in fog machines in the imaginations of haunt enthusiasts. That brings us to Knott's Scary Farm. Knott's Ghost Town Scare Zone has always been more than ghouls and cowboy outfits. It's a living archive of haunted Americana. Nearly 30 years ago, it's weird for me to say that, on a personal labor of love called ultimatehaunt.com, I wrote an unofficial backstory for Scary Farm's Ghost Town, inspired by the old hanging shows at the event from the late 1980s, and I mixed that with ancient Celtic lore, stories from my Irish roots that talk about Samhain, the night when the veil between the living and the dead is its thinnest. At the story's heart was a woman named Sarah Marshall, accused of witchcraft in the late 1800s. She was found guilty, and she was sentenced to death by way of hanging. Pushed to the brink by the cruelty of Calico's corrupt citizens, Calico is the proper name of Ghost Town, by the way, Sarah Marshall revealed her true nature, a powerful, vengeful witch whose wrath was forged in betrayal. Her final curse wasn't whispered. It was roared into the bones of the town. Listen closely. This is the curse. Every summer's end, the dead shall crawl from Boot Hill, and your wretched souls will reveal their true hideous nature, evil creatures with an eternal quench for living flesh. That's the curse of the monsters of Ghost Town at Knott's Scary Farm. So that's why when you walk through Ghost Town every season, you see undead cowboy creatures and manimal creatures. So it's not just a haunting, it's a reckoning. Every Halloween, the veil thins and the dead rise, not just to scare, but to try and attack. The fog doesn't just conceal, it reveals. And the monsters, yeah, they're just people in masks scaring people. But they represent something way more than that. They are portraying the townsfolk themselves, twisted by guilt, fear, and the sins they buried. When I scripted the Scary Farm Maze Origins, The Curse of Calico with co-designer John Cook, I turned that unofficial backstory into the official story of Scary Farm's Ghost Town. Sarah Marshall became the embodiment of that threshold. Not just a ghost, but a gatekeeper, and of course, she became the event's greatest icon, the Green Witch. Now, long before we created that maze, I was a monster in the fog of Ghost Town. I've talked about it a ton in this podcast. Being part of Scary Farm's cast was magic. I loved every single minute of it. But years of fandom and being a monster turned into historian. I wrote the book on Not Scary Farm's history, outlining its transformation from a 3-night October event to Halloween theme park pioneer. So it wasn't just documentation, it was devotion. And when Origins opened in 2019, it felt like closing a circle and cracking open a new one. The story I once typed on a big old ancient gateway personal computer back in the day was now visceral, tangible, haunting guests in real time. Sarah Marshall had gone from myth to maze, rising from an old website to walking among us each fall. To me, haunt isn't just performance, it's preservation. These legends, whether we're talking cowboy zombies or go back 2,000 years to Celtic folklore, they echo because they mean something. They are a ritual, a release, and a reminder. At Not Scary Farm, they are whispering through masks what history screams. A story where grief lingers, that justice isn't always served, and that forgotten souls deserve their night in the spotlight, even if they arrive with the rattles of old shaker cans, noisemakers, metal gloves, and sliding pads. So, whether you've walked the fog as a fan, a monster, or a creator, even if you've never been to Scary Farm, but you've walked through any scare zone at any theme park on the planet, you are all part of this legacy. Every scream adds to the myth. Every scare births a story. And every Halloween, Ghost Town remembers its echoes of the past. And just like that, our shift comes to a close. Huge thanks to our fear architect, Anthony Dalbis. Within these stories is the blueprint of fear itself. How we face it, how it transforms us, how we create it, and sometimes how it sets us free. If you liked what you heard, do us a favor and tell a friend to tell a friend. Give us a good review, 5 stars, and help spread the word. Thanks for spending your nightmares with us. I'm your host, Ted Doherty. Beast wishes, and until we meet again, it's officially time to clock out of Working the Fright Shift. Working the Fright Shift is written and produced by Ted Doherty. No portion of this recording may be reproduced, distributed, or transmitted in any form or by any means without the prior written and express permission of the producer. All opinions expressed in this recording are solely those of the individuals and do not necessarily reflect the views of the producer or affiliates. For more details, visit www.workingthefrightshift.com. Copyright 2025, Ted Doherty. All rights reserved.